episode of Seeing Sentai. I'm Mars Girl. We're still talking about Jaka Denkitai. We're on episodes 22 through 28. Oh my god, only one of the episodes that I watched this past week was before the appearance of the new Sentai member, Big One. That one featured a monster by the name of Devil Scrap, and it was the last physical, appearance of Joker, he's sitting there running the whole organization of this branch of ISIS that becomes Jaka. So that episode ends, and in fact ends with Joker trying to play with a kendama and then clocking himself in the head and then passing out. So, a real classy way to see the leader of Jaka kind of sent out the door. This thing is so dangerous. But really what I think a lot of people were waiting for was in fact the appearance of Big One. So that happens in episode 23, along with the appearance of the great big evil mastermind behind crime. Because if you thought that it was Iron Claw, it isn't. It's this big cloud, this glowing cloud in the sky by the name of Shine, and he's apparently an alien. And that's kind of weird that crime was wanting to do crime for the sake of an alien. What is an alien's ulterior motives? Well, after a little while, it just sort of appears like all he cares to do is defeat Jaka. That seems like a really narrowly focused mission for an alien, but, whatever he wants to do, I guess. How does King even do this? So episode 23 is where we start to get different kinds of monsters that aren't named Devil something, and with the word devil and something else placed at the end of it. We've seen Atomic Witch, Hell Angel, General Antongam, Captain Ghost, Crocodile Fuhrer, and Tentacle Monk. So now we're back to this theme of just mixing a thing with another thing and then putting them together and calling them a monster. And with all these new kind of baddies comes two new characters, and one of them is Sokichi Banba. So Sokichi Banba comes in, and he's the guy who is playing Big One, mind you. Also, he is the same actor that you saw as playing Owl Ranger, the blue Go Ranger from the previous Sentai series. So if you recognize him, that's a good reason why. He also plays Kamen Rider V3 as well as Kaiketsu Zubat. So he comes into the Jaka headquarters one day, and he's sitting in the seat the Joker's sitting in, and everybody comes in hey, that's Joker's seat, and he's like, it's my seat, and they're like, oh yeah, well get out of it. He's like, no, I'm gonna show you a video, and then the video is of Joker saying, hi guys, I went to New York, here, listen to this guy. Oh, okay, cool. But not all of them are cool with it right off the bat. They think, oh, well, he's gotta be a crime spy. But that's when Ace goes, no wait! If he's supposed to be our leader, then he should be able to put together the Big Bomber. Big Bomber, okay, what's that? And all of a sudden, all the members of Jaka pull out these little figures that they apparently had this whole time and nobody knew about. One of them had one wheel, another had another wheel, another had this funnel for a cannon, and then another one had this V-shaped contraption to prop up the cannon. So they built this tiny little model cannon, and then they put it on Sokichi Banba's desk. And then Sokichi apparently has a special missile. He's got the missile that fires it, he puts it in this tiny miniature tank, and then they see a projection of Big One. And so now they know, oh, so you're that Big One guy. And Big One is, you might recognize him as being, they're their 5th Sentai member. So he's their leader and a member of the team, and he apparently has the power of all 4 of those dudes combined, and he doesn't have to transform in those stupid little pods. And he looks cool, he really does, and his character does act very, very suave and cool. But the problem with him is that whereas the previous 4 members are all based on a theme of cards, Big One is just rainbows, and that looks fine, but it doesn't match the theme of the other characters, and that's kind of disjointing, and the way they've kind of reformatted the entire show You would think this is supposed to be the Big One show. You know, now the intro, the opening and the closing have been edited differently, and now they include footage of Big One. And like, he is pushed to the forefront so much, and then the eye catch images in the middle are these really big drawings that I assume Shotaro Ishinomori drew. And Big One takes up like 3/4 of the picture, whereas the other 4 members are, you know, down in a very small placement in front of him somewhere. But the weird thing is, he doesn't friggin' fight alongside the other 4 members of Jaka. He only shows up at the end of a major fight when everybody's getting in trouble. Like, you see so often in Sentai series, you know, all the members of the team are gonna help each other out and team up with each other, and they're gonna be like really cool, like combination attacks. So far, Big One has not done that. He only shows up at the end in order to form the actual big bomber, and they make an actual full-size tank, and then he puts in an actual full-size missile, and then they fire it at the bad guy, and the bad guy gets this hole punched through his torso, and then he explodes and he dies, and then half the time Big One just kind of off and disappears somewhere, wherever the hell he feels like going, and that's kind of misleading. Really, the whole series seems very misleading at this point. How is he so good? And then there's the appearance of this other secondary character that joins ISIS, and all he seems to want to do is help the team, Jaka, and his name is Hime Tamasaburo. And this guy is so almost unforgivably annoying, and I get it's supposed to be childish now, and maybe I would have accepted him a little bit better had this series just kind of always been like this, but it's really disjointing. It's so annoying. He's dressed very traditionally. All he wants to do is cook food. He cooks a lot of ramen, like instant ramen too. Like, it's not this magnificent ramen. Like, maybe it's good, but it's instant, and that's all. His whole purpose is simply to exist. He doesn't actually, up until this point in the series, he hasn't done anything particularly significant. In fact, most of the characters don't even really like him. Like, they kind of tolerate him, but almost every single episode he's appeared in thus far, somebody picks him up, and he's kicking and screaming as they're throwing him out the command center door and then locking him outside. Nobody wants him around. I don't know who asked for this guy, but to me, he's not friggin' welcome, and I don't like him. This could kill a man. You know, we're starting to see, like I mentioned, tons and tons of monsters and stuff. So then comes this one particular monster, and his name is Crocodile Führer. And Crocodile Führer, as you might kind of gather from the name of this enemy, is a Nazi. Very, very Nazi. He's waving the Nazi flag, and he's wearing swastikas, or really sometimes the symbol on his head is more of the traditional Japanese manji than it is a swastika, but they used it anyway. And I need to tell you guys about this episode because it's probably the most significant episode out of this whole past week's worth of episodes I watched, because this is straight up all about Nazis and all about really, really terrible things. If there is any episode that I thought this is probably going to be the darkest episode you're going to see out of this leg of all of Jaka, it's got to be this one. And in fact, even despite this part of the series being way different from the beginning part of the series, and even if you don't know anything about Jaka and you haven't watched any of the episodes up until this point in time, I would almost recommend stop what you're doing, go find that episode, it's episode 27, and go watch it, because it seems very significant to the history of Japan and its relations with kind of struggling with its history within World War II. And I say that because, like, man, this is a really uncomfortable episode to watch, because Crocodile Führer is just going around and picking up people, throwing them into trucks, and then he's putting them in concentration camps. Like, seriously, literal concentration camps. people are getting beaten, they're being forced to build things that they don't want to build, and people are getting killed, and people are getting gassed. It's awful. It is absolutely like, I can't think of a more uncomfortable episode of Sentai that I have watched yet. In fact, they directly reference Auschwitz and Hitler, and they even show photos of Auschwitz. Like, there's only 2 photos, and they're probably the most tame photos they could have possibly found, but they directly reference these horrible events throughout World War II. And you gotta figure, that's really bizarre, or really more, not so much bizarre, but fascinating if you consider Japan and Germany were allies in World War II. So now, come 1977, clearly Japan has decided, maybe our choice in allies wasn't so great, and now you're seeing this huge heel turn in showing just how horrible conditions these were, and then making a full-out mockery of Nazi Germany. And in fact, almost all the members of Jaka get captured and thrown into this concentration camp, and then, except for Big One. Then Big One has to come in, or really Sokichi, and he's disguised himself, I suppose, as Hitler, and he's dressed very Nazi-ish, and he's wearing the Hitler stash and everything, and oh my god, it is so ridiculously uncomfortable. But Crocodile Führer is all like, man, this is awesome! I could have never dreamed that I would have gotten such great recognition from you. Like, I guess he missed the message that Hitler had killed himself 32 years prior to the airing of this episode, but okay, whatever you want to believe, Crocodile Führer. But ultimately, Sokichi deceives Crocodile Führer and frees everybody from the concentration camp and frees everybody in Jaka. The day is saved, but oh my god, the imagery is really quite fascinating. And if there's nothing else I can say about it, it's that I'd be interested in learning more about how World War II is perceived in Japanese media throughout the course of really post-World War II. Because this, surely some of you people out there know, this isn't the only time that this kind of imagery is going to come up, making a mockery of Hitler or of Nazi Germany. A lot of people might be familiar with Starfish Hitler from a Kamen Rider franchise, and so it's going to come up again. Through Toei, through Tokusatsu, through Shotaro Ishinomori, it comes up again. So I find that really fascinating, and a part of me really wants to learn more about why. Why does it appear like that? So if anybody wants to fill me in on some of it, if anybody has any more information they care to share, I mean, definitely feel free to comment, because that's just totally interesting to me. So yes, Jaka has completely and utterly, gone off the rails and being completely and utterly absurd at this point, and now we're kind of winding down. Believe it or not, next week is our very last week that we're going to be talking about Jaka, because the series is already almost friggin' over. That's totally insane, but too bad, show got cancelled. What are you gonna do? So I hope you will stick with me for just one more week of Jaka, and then I'm excited to move on and start talking about Battle Fever J, and I think some of you will be able to actually keep up with me on that one, because subtitles do in fact exist for it. I'm not going to tell you where to go, much like all my previous other vlogs, but I think Google will be your friend on this one. If you really, really wanted to go out and find it, I think you're going to find it pretty quick. That's it for the time being. Thank you as always to the Patreon contributors over at patreon.com/MarsGirl. If you're at all interested in finding out what that's all about, again, go ahead and visit patreon.com/MarsGirl. We'll get you set up, get you squared away with access and early access to videos and all kinds of other fun stuff. And as always, check out my Tumblr, marsgirl.tumblr.com, where I am writing about all of these episodes of Jaka Denkitai as I'm watching them, trying to watch an episode a day, doing kind of a bad job of it, and trying to play some catch up here, but we're almost all the way caught up, and I'll definitely have more Jaka for you guys next week. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week, joining me for the very last episode where I'm talking about Jaka Denkitai. I'll be seeing you guys then.